Hello. Welcome to Creed Got Robbed, presented by Unscripted Gaming. I am your unusual host for the day, Josh. My co hosts, Mike and Ray, are both absent today. But this is our podcast where we watch movies and discuss them and often remind you that Creed got robbed. And today, I'm here to talk about some movies that are on the other side of that spectrum, that are the ones who sometimes do the robbing. Today I'm here to talk about Mufasa, the Lion King. I recently saw this film and I have so many thoughts and opinions and feelings on this that I just had to sit down in front of the microphone and get them out. Mike refuses to watch the movie. Ray is attempting to, but is unable to, and I'm going out of town, so I just needed to get these out here, so we're doing this solo today. But yeah, so full disclaimer before we get going, I am going to be talking about plot points. I'm going to be talking about spoilers, so if you are sensitive to that, like I am, please make sure you go watch the movie before, or actually don't, because the movie's pretty bad, spoiler alert, and you shouldn't watch it, because Disney needs to learn a lesson. And this movie needs to not do very well. But like I said, I'm worried that because of the names attached to it, because of the studio, because it is popular amongst a certain group of people, that it could be a spoiler for other more deserving films. So, yeah, let's dive right into my problems with Mufasa, the Lion King. First off, who wants this movie? Who was this movie for? I keep trying to ask that, and I've asked this to a bunch of people, like, have you ever sat and wondered, why is Scar an asshole? How did Mufasa become king? Because in The Lion King, it's just kind of assumed that, oh, hey, he comes from a long line of kings that rule over the area of Pride Rock and everything that the light touches, and Scar is his weird, kind of ugly brother who has a British accent and is an evil mastermind and wants to usurp his throne. What if I told you Mufasa did not come from a long line of kings and was in fact kind of a bit of a bastard child, and Scar was the rightful king of a certain area, and that the reason Scar's an asshole is because of a love triangle? Would you be interested in that? Does that make you appreciate The Lion King anymore? Because it certainly didn't for me. In fact, as somebody who grew up with The Lion King, I love The Lion King. And I think if it had not been so ingrained in me, this is almost like Star Wars prequel level. Like, oh, we are cheapening the main property that this prequel is for by shoehorning in really bad storylines, really bad characters, and just kind of muddying things up with explanations that we just didn't need. I think Scar's just malevolent ambition to rule on its own is enough. It doesn't need to have been something where he was actually kind of a good guy, a little incompetent, a little scared, and then kind of was shown up by his brother and made to become evil because of that. So, but we'll get into that. So first off, honestly, genuinely, my main problem, part of the reason I was not excited to see this movie, is I really don't like these live action movies, especially the ones that are photorealistic animals. I mean, I know The Lion King did well in the box office. I think that is partially because of the cast that was behind it and taking over millennial nostalgia. I understand that. I understand why that's popular. But I just cannot get over how we are in this uncanny valley most of the time with the animals, where they can make them emote a little bit, but not too much. And you also just don't really get good differentiation, especially when we go back into this film where Scar doesn't have his scar. Their coloration's not that different. Like, with the hand-drawn animation, you can really put emotions into them. You can differentiate the characters even within a species very well if you want to. It is very visually appealing, and you can do more with it. Whereas the lifelike, you just, it is constraining, and it is something that, yes, it takes a certain skill to do, but it just does not appeal to me in the slightest. And I do think that with a lot of CGI stuff, like, it won't hold up long term. Like, yeah, it looks good, and it's hard to imagine, something's ever going to look good any better than this. But I remember looking at PlayStation 2 games that I never thought were going to look any better. Graphics had peaked, and yet here we are, and things look great. And going back and looking at some of those PS1, PS2 games, like, oh, this is tough. So, like, you can go back and watch Lion King right now and be like, man, this still looks phenomenal. But I don't think you're going to have a similar experience with The Lion King and now Mufasa, The Lion King. And in addition to that, the music. I think the first Lion King gets by with everybody knew those songs. I think there was one or two new songs that they added to it, but like, everybody knows those songs. They're very popular. Musicians who were singing them. So the fact that you don't get the same visuals and you don't get the same emotions that you do in the hand-drawn version doesn't hurt it as much. But in this movie, where the music's not that good, it's not something you've heard before, and you then don't have like these really incredible visuals to go with it. You don't have, the big cinematic musical moments where animals are really dancing and doing outrageous things. Like, it just really kind of falls flat. Now, I know Lin-Manuel Miranda was involved in some of the music. He wrote some of the songs, not all of them. But there's only one really song that I walked away from that I can still hear in my head, that is like semi-catchy, but it's still bad. And there are a couple of songs that are just so unbelievably cringy. It's almost baffling to know how those got put into the, like, did they really think that was their best work? Or they're just like, we need to get this out the door. The first one made a bunch of movies. This is just going to ride on its coattails. Like, it did not feel very good. And the main thing we'll get to here is it just does not feel like they were really saying anything with this story. Like, I did not feel like there was a message other than monarchy is good. And I'll get back to that in a second. So we start off with Kiara getting babysat by Timon and Pumbaa, which Timon and Pumbaa, probably the best parts about this movie, and they're only in it on the screen for like 5 minutes total in like 4 different interjections, which the movie did not need, but I was glad that they were there because they were the only times I was actually having fun in this 2-hour movie. But so Kiara is getting babysat by Timon and Pumbaa while Simba and Nala go off to have her baby brother, who they do not name. I wonder if it's going to be Kion from The Lion Guard. Who knows? I'm sure there will be a sequel movie eventually where we find out more about the Simba's family. But so Rafiki comes around as well, and we're telling a story about a great king who used to be afraid of water. And we find out that Mufasa was putzing around in an area with his parents, and there were drought conditions, and then all of a sudden there was rain, and then there was a flash flood, and Simba got blown away in this flood. Probably also killed his father, which being a father in the Disney universe and having a son is a huge liability, as we all know. So he gets washed away and comes across this other pride some number of miles away. We don't know, days later. And he meets who will one day become Scar, named Taka. And Taka's dad tries to kick him out, saying we don't take in strays. They only bring in pain and misery, blah, blah, blah. Taka's like, I've always wanted a brother. And they sort of adopt Mufasa as their son. And throughout the film, finally, we have some folks who come in, true outsiders, to take over Taka's Pride lands. And Taka and Mufasa have to run to try and save the bloodline and outwit the evil white lions. And along the way, we meet Rafiki. We meet Sarabi, who is a princess who was also impacted by the white lion, who wanted to become the king of kings and rule all the Pride lands. And is like, wow, this is a future king. I'm a princess. We are to be. We are to be to be. We also meet Zazu in this time, which I did not like Zazu in this movie. I felt like his character was very goofy, not very helpful. He wasn't very put together. Like, he had just come into his role as, helping out with Sarabi, and it just, his jokes and his character were flat, just very, very flat. But we go on, we are adventuring because we are trying to find this promised land that Mufasa's mom and dad talked about, somewhere where the sun rises. And we are journeying across Africa to try and find that and to try and get ahead of the evil white lions who are trying to kill them. And, shenanigans ensue. Obviously it's a Lion King movie. We have to have a stampede at some point. And Mufasa saves Sarabi. But he is a true brother and says that Taka did it. And eventually Sarabi finds out that Taka wasn't brave, but it was actually Mufasa. And they fall in love. And Taka does not like this. And he gets mad. He gets big mad. So big mad that he goes and finds the white lion and is like, you know what? I'm going to help you kill Mufasa because Mufasa is actually the reason why your son died. And White Lion is like, yeah, you're right. He killed my son. And your father is dead because I killed him. I need a son. You need a father. We are of royal blood. You are my son now. Again, all because of a girl. All because of a girl. We have journeyed across Africa, saved lives, and now we're so big mad, we're going to go fight the big baddie, make him our dad, and go kill our brother. So all things come to a head in the big battle. We find the promised land. It is an ungoverned paradise. And during the battle, there's an earthquake, because of course there is. And that's when Pride Rock happens, because you know what? You always just thought Pride Rock was always there, and like that's where they govern from. But no. Mufasa fighting a big baddie caused an earthquake that made Pride Rock happen. And he rallied all of the unincorporated animals to fight back against the evil monarchical tyranny of the White Lion. Oh, by the way, Mufasa also has magic powers of perception, because at one point he is falling to his death in a pit of water with the big bad white lion, and he perceives a rock falling, and he's able to put the big lion in the path of the rock, and that is how he is defeated. And then swimming back up, puts his claws up, and there's Taka, big mad still, but not as big mad, and he reaches down, puts the claws in, like in the scene from the real movie. But this time, instead of throwing him to his demise when he has him, he pulls him up. And he apologizes. He says he's so sorry. He's so very sorry. And that's when Mufasa's like, you know what? I can forgive you. But I cannot forget. And I can never say your name again. And because Taka got a cut on his eye during the fight. And because of the scar that he put on his name from being an asshole about a girl, he's like, I can never say your name again. You're Scar now. So we have this whole arc where most of the movie, Taka is a good guy. He's a bit of a fuck up, but like he kept Mufasa alive. You know, they're journeying through the world together. He gets big mad about a girl. He tries to kill Mufasa. He changes his mind. He saves Mufasa. And then Mufasa's like, I thank you, but I'm still pissed. And then Scar walks away with like a grimace. And it's so uncohesive. And it's like, somehow they did not have enough time in 2 hours to like make Scar likable, unlikable, redeem him, and then unredeem him all in the same time to make sure that his character in The Lion King makes sense, because you can't like have a redemption arc but then be like, oh shit, he kills Mufasa, so he has to still be big mad about the fact that he did not get the lady. It was so, again, it just did not feel like there was a coherent message, and they were trying to shoehorn stuff in, which, you know, you go back and you look at The Lion King, which I did right before this recording, because I was like, I feel like Mufasa talks about like all the past great kings of the land being in the stars, but then we come to find out, at least where Pride Rock is, there wasn't a king, and Mufasa actually didn't want to be king, but all the animals started kneeling down to him. He's like, no, you're free, and Rafiki's like, no, they chose you as their king. So Meritus monarchy, good. You know, conquering monarchy, bad, but it's okay to be a monarch if you earn it. But again, there hasn't been this huge line of succession that we imply in the first Lion King, because we have to make this story about why Mufasa took something that wasn't his, but he made it his, that made Scar mad, but then made him not mad, but then made him mad again. It was all over the place, and I wasn't really like, it just never once felt like they were trying to say something with the movie. Like there's no reason for this movie to exist other than a vessel to make money. Because even like most of the big names that you would say from the first movie, of like, you know, your Simbas, your Nalas, like the folks who were in it, are not really in this movie. Yes, Nala has like 2 voice lines. Simba has like 2 voice lines. Rafiki talks a lot. Timon and Pumbaa are in it. They're hilarious, but they're only in it for like 4 or 5 minutes. And those scenes honestly could have been cut to save time, because I didn't need to keep going back and getting it like interjections on stuff. And it was a waste of time. As most know, you know, I have a couple baby Metroids of my own, and I took them to see the movie because we went to a great American city known for its winter sports, and it was 50 degrees outside, so all the winter sports were canceled. So we're like, well, what do we do with these kids for a couple days? I know, we'll go see that new Lion King movie. If I hadn't had those children with me, I would have walked out and I would have asked for a refund, because it was just so incoherent. The music was terrible. I don't like that CGI. And it was boring. We spent a lot of time moving from place to place, not really doing anything, not really saying anything. There wasn't interesting music. There were a couple interesting like sceneries to say. Like even Rafiki being in the movie more with his sage-like ways and like becoming who he eventually was, just didn't really have too much to say. So I just could not and will not recommend this movie. And I could sit here for another 20 minutes going on about why it's bad. But at the end of the day, it's not good. I don't recommend it. I give it a 5 out of 10 at most, and that's probably being a little too generous. But yeah. So Mufasa, The Lion King, don't watch it. It's bad. Send Disney a message that says you can't just fart out something in the same universe and expect it to do well. You have to actually try. I'm willing, because clearly this movie was to set up something with Kiara and her brother and like becoming the next ruler in some capacity. I don't know how far we'll jump ahead, because obviously, they'll probably want to try and get Donald Glover and Beyonce to do some more. Who knows? But honestly, I would have just rather them gone straight to doing that. Like, this movie did not need to exist. This story did not need to be told. I think that you can do this prodigal, I was destined to be this, but it was taken from me. You think about like Black Panther and Killmonger. Like, that's a good version of that story, where you have the person who thinks they're the rightful heir to the throne, who tries to do something to take it and is then defeated because, they don't have the heart, or they don't want, whatever it is. Like, this was just not that story, because again, you cannot fully redeem Scar for what he does, because you have to set him up to then kill Mufasa. So you could have a redemption arc for Scar if the Lion King doesn't exist, but the Lion King does exist. So you can have Scar save Mufasa, but then he has to be mad and brooding about it. It doesn't make sense. It didn't need to exist. I would have honestly rather than made a sequel. I probably would have seen that with kids and whatnot, and gone from there. But I think trying to go back and shoehorn a story before the original movie just was a mistake. And I really, truly hope this movie does poorly in the box office. I haven't looked at the numbers. I'm sure it'll do fine, because it's a Disney movie, and it's a kid movie that came out during the holidays when people are home. So, like, peak time for, I need something to do with these kids. So I just, I hope the streaming numbers are bad, because, the music's not very good. So, like, people are going to want to rather watch The Lion King instead of Mufasa. I don't know. Hopefully, the big thing is that this doesn't rob any other movies that are far more deserving of any accolades. Like, honestly, winning one award for this movie is too many awards. I hope it wins nothing. It should win nothing. It was terrible. But you know where you can find out if this movie wins an award, how I feel about it? At unscriptedgaming.com. There you can find links to all of our social media presences and our video and audio versions of the various podcasts we do, like here at Creed Got Robbed, where we watch movies and remind you that Creed got robbed, our Unscripted Gaming main channel, where we talk about video games, and we are on Facebook at Unscripted Game Podcast. We are on X, the everything at unscript_gaming. We are at soundcloud.com/unscripted-gaming. That's where you can find all the audio versions of our podcast. We're on all the major podcatchers, and you can find the video versions of our shows on YouTube. Thank you for listening to Creed Got Robbed. My name is Josh. Peace.